Huawei también cuenta con el programa.
Huawei also has the ICT Academy, where we collaborate with more than 100 universities of the region to train young talents. We also invite the students to be in the ICT competition every single day. We are the CTC group in Chile. We have the commitment to train 5,000 students in 5 years, contributing to the aspiration of being a referent in economy, digital economy in Bolivia. We trained and arranged the cloud in Brazil. We are more than 70 universities in the training. We have been giving free courses in 5G. In Mexico, we're training students along with universities to take advantage of our capabilities in our labs. Totally, we have associated with 100 universities of the region to train at least 50,000 talents in ICT. Our objective is to do more, and we will keep on working. We're convinced that digitalization of the region is focused on the talent of youngsters.
We work positively with our backgrounds, education, effort, and commitment. Sis for the Future is the clear example of this kind of work. And I'm really thankful for having the possibility of being part of this revolution.
Good morning to everyone. This is Francisco Miranda. The situation of these times of pandemics and remote, I had my microphone off. I am the director of portfolio, Francisco Miranda. I want to welcome you to this Latin American virtual forum, Preparing the Future of Latin America Portfolio. Huawei Technologies from Latin America and the Regional Office of Education for Latin America and the Caribbean, Oriole Sea, have wanted to create this reflection space where we want to take a picture of the panorama of training, education in ICT, in these technologies, its role in Latin America, mostly for the youngsters. We want to make reflections on the power that in an economic and sanitary crisis, as well as social in some countries that our subcontinent, our region is undergoing. We have several moments. We have panel members invited, which will bring perspectives from the varied countries of our region: Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Ecuador, Honduras, and Colombia. Brazil. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to receive a vision of this panorama in the ITC training in the first panel. We will also have a presentation of words with representatives on behalf of Huawei and Oriole UNESCO, which will tell us and help us understand why these topics are so important and why these reflection spaces are so important. At the end, we will have the signature of an intention letter between you, an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between these two organizations, which are part of this diverse ecosystem of collaboration that our countries need for our ITC talents to be able to impact our education, our understanding, our businesses, as well as our classrooms, as well as our democracies. We will continue in a second panel where we will deepen on the local ITC technologies, as well as the economic development and training and education. We will finally end up with a conclusion and a space for our journalist colleagues, which will have a session of questions and answers, a frequently asked question area. We are From Bogota, Colombia, we thank you for connecting from all the different countries of Latin America, of South and Central America, from Mexico too. I don't want to delay anymore. We will start with the words of Katherine Chen. She's a senior vice president of Huawei corporate around the world. She has been working with Huawei. She has developed her career with all responsibilities. She's the president of the board. She's the president of communications and public affairs and vice president of Huawei Technologies. On behalf of Huawei Technologies, I want to give you this introduction on behalf of Ms. Katherine Chen. Madame Katherine Chen.
Minister Malcolm, Minister Keaton, Chairman Alvarado. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Katherine Chen, Senior Vice President and Director of Huawei. I'm honored to attend today's event and share Huawei's ideas and practices on nurturing ICT talent. We greatly look forward to working with you on ICT. Over the past 3 decades, China and the rest of the world have enjoyed fast growth, and so has Huawei. The company now has a presence in over 170 countries and regions, serving one-third of the world population and supporting the development of local communities. In many regions, such as Latin America and the Caribbean, fiber optical cables and base stations are connecting more people to the outside world. This gives them better access to information and opportunities. Huawei aims to connect as many people as possible and drive inclusive development. However, 30% of the world's population is still unconnected. As of January 2021, global network penetration was about 60%. The Nordic region ranked first with 96%, and the East Africa region ranked last with 24%. This meant a 72% gap between the two. The gap can be seen in other technologies such as data, global intellectual property, public cloud, AI, IoT, and 5G. There is a huge digital divide between different regions, presenting
En una diferente región, con un talento práctico,
and industry partners to connect the unconnected in remote corners of the world. The next generation will enjoy better opportunities for development. ICT represent vital infrastructure essential to the development of the digital industry and the economy at large. ICT talent is not only the cornerstone of the digital industry, but a pillar of thriving economies. Therefore, working with local partners in various countries, we have increased our investment in training ICT talent over the years. We have several ICT talent development programs, such as and the Global ICT Competition. Every year, Huawei's program offers scholarships to young people worldwide. This program invites students to visit China, learn about cutting-edge digital technologies, receive intensive technical trainings, and communicate with people from different cultures and backgrounds. Huawei ICT Academy was launched in 2013. By December 2020, Huawei had cooperated with over 1,500 universities set up ICT academies around the world. That we design training materials, train the trainers, establish joint labs, and offer certification services. Today, nearly 400,000 people have been certified by Huawei. In terms of nurturing ICT talent, we also focus on inclusiveness and aim to build an open ICT talent ecosystem that can benefit all players within. We want to establish better connectivity to bring more education opportunities to people in remote areas and vulnerable groups. If these people master ICT skills and contribute to inclusive development, they will have more opportunity. We hope to partners from all walks of life to invest in and develop education. We believe this will lead to great opportunities for inclusive development. I don't want anyone back hand. Running the seeds for the future program in Latin America and the Caribbean. 1,000 young students from 20 countries have already benefited from this program. Most of them have grown into outstanding ICT professionals with great careers. We also work with over 100 universities and vocational education institutions, providing training through our ICT Academy. At the Huawei ICT Competition, a global event, representative teams from Colombia and Brazil have come out on top in the number of tracks. We estimate that we have provided ICT training to more than 50,000 people in Latin America. In Argentina, we are working with the government on the Igual ICT program. We have hosted forums on things such as future ICT education, female leadership, and ICT improvement, leading discussions about talent development. We work side by side with the Ministry of Production and Labor to cultivate women. This is the novel CSR program in the region. In our development, we have been lucky to find many fellow travelers. ESCO is an important one of them. Our joint global initiative, Tech for All, is a model for digital inclusiveness initiative, advocates tech to drive improvement among individual organizations. We want to team up with ORIC. The signing of this letter of intent will help us bring digital to every home in America. We have identified potential areas of collaboration. This includes promoting inclusive digital education, strengthening digital training for teachers and professionals, elevating the digital skills in workshops, and working with local universities, research institutes, and industry organizations. All of this will drive the development of the digital talent ecosystem. Following Huawei and ORIC share common responsibilities and to pave the way for digital talent development in Latin America. Better integrated world.
Gracias, Katherine Chen, vicepresidente senior corporativo de Huawei, por este mensaje.
que da introducción a este evento y, como les decía, la razón, el motivo por el cual Huawei y UNESCO Oreal se encuentran convocando este espacio de reflexión es precisamente a raíz de la firma de esta carta de intención. Y quiero ahora darle la introducción a la directora de esta oficina regional de educación para América Latina y el Caribe de UNESCO.
In UNESCO, in Latin America. This is the counterpart of this letter of intent. Dr. Claudia Uribe, she's an anthropologist with master's and doctorship in Harvard University in the study in the Inter-American Development Bank in terms of education and the development of education in Latin America. She's carrying out her job as the director of the Latin American Education Forum in Latin America. Thank you, Francisco, and good morning. In the name of the Regional Education Office of UNESCO, or ILC, as we call it warmly, we want to welcome you to this event where we together will give a glance to the key roles of ITC technologies to support the continuation of education processes during this pandemics and to carry out the recovery and the transformation of education of the goals in our Agenda 2030, which is our roadmap. I thank you for the words of Ms. Katherine Chen, the Senior Director of Huawei, Mark Swemen, of Vice President of Huawei, Mr. Cesar Funes, Vice President, Public Relations for Latin America, Huawei Director. I also want to thank to the Ministry of Innovation of Argentina, as well as Silvina Moscheni, as well as Ignacio Gaitan, the president of Impulsa, the agency of the Colombian government for innovation, entrepreneurship, and creative industries, as well as recognized representatives of academics in Latin America. This pandemic has carried out challenges with no precedence for students to be able to study in Latin America. The closing of schools, and which has affected more than 160 million children and youngsters, as well as their families in our region, has evidenced how vulnerable our educational systems are to face crises which are ever frequent and unpredictable. No doubts, this has been a difficult year for all of us with challenges and uncertainties. Nevertheless, pandemics has also taught us that creativity, adaptability, resilience, as well as cooperation are strategic roads to face future crises as well as present ones for our educational systems. Along this year, we have collaborated with the Ministries of Education of the whole region of Latin America and the Caribbean, with alliances in the public and private sectors and leaders in the civil society to design answers to the different contexts and limitations that characterize us. We have made big efforts to respond to the specific needs of our countries and local communities to strengthen the collaboration and participation, as well as multilateralism. In this road, we have made calls to take care of the most vulnerable communities and to keep the relevance and quality of education in these pandemic times. The main actions we have been developing are the dialogue spaces among countries, the constant monitoring of the state of closing of schools in the region. We have been making calls to the prioritization in the vaccination campaigns, as well as technical assistance to implement virtual solutions which might be inclusive with null, high, and medium technology. From UNESCO, we have also developed a variety of workshops and online seminars to exchange information in the efforts of countries to sustain the education in the different contexts. An example is the cycle of 32 web seminars from Orielk in not leaving anyone behind in the times of 2019. We have made available to the countries and teachers with a series of repositories and tools for the teaching and training to continue education. We have also had different polls to analyze the impact in the closings of schools, but maybe the most emblematic initiative to face COVID-19 pandemics is the coalition, the Global Coalition for Education, which UNESCO launched at the beginning of 2020 as a platform of collaboration to protect the right of education in pandemics. And furthermore, this coalition has become into force for change with 100 countries. It includes agencies and international organizations, as well as private and social civil society and academics communities. We have three prioritary axes. The first one, connectiveness or connectivity, how to widen and guarantee access to all the children of the world. Secondly, how to give support to teachers and professors in this distance education times. And the third one is how to attend gender inequities due to virtuality and the usage of technologies. This coalition additionally contributes to assure the training and learning while we define the ways of reimagining the education of the future. In the most critical times of pandemics, technologies have been crucial allies to content, mostly for the development of experiences in flexible ways as remote teachings. Virtual platforms of educational content have become didactic as well as solutions of virtual rooms. Even though we have had short time and limited opportunities to train, the work of teachers have been key to adapt the practices and to keep the interest of students at their homes, which have become the new classrooms. Nevertheless, since there is disparity in the access to these technologies, it has deepened also the inequalities before pandemics in the region. This because the solutions of education online have only been easy for the people who have had access. CIEMPO indicate that 46% of the children in a region live in homes which are not connected to internet. This situation affects in some of our countries 90% of the poorest households. It's reasonable to presume that even though our efforts, the education of students are not going to get to the levels, and we will have to do more effort to level these, to balance these levels. We need to establish synergies in the actions of UNESCO in the region, in the fulfillment of its mission, and the initiatives that Huawei has been developing in promoting inclusion, welcoming a better quality of life and assuring it. This MOU between the Regional Office of UNESCO and Huawei Technologies of Mexico is an act that strengthens the alliance that we have already sealed in a global way, because in 2020, Huawei went along with the initiative Tech for All. This initiative has connectiveness for schools, training in digital capabilities, support for kids with impairment in hearing, and works with universities and governments to cultivate youngster talents in the ITC environment. This is a work of several months where UNESCO and Huawei have shared visions, experiences, and plans for the future of Latin America, which have been put into priority areas, which is first, the development of women competition, competitiveness in digital abilities, the training of teachers, thirdly, the development of training in vulnerable groups, and fourthly, the development of technologic devices for selected countries. Within this framework, we will disseminate the future programs of UNESCO, and we are convened groups and work groups to face certain topics between UNESCO and Huawei. In the name of UNESCO, I would like to express again our deepest thanks to Huawei in the person of Mark Swammer, its representative, for the openingness and your interest in working with UNESCO in the construction of a better future through education for Latin America. We're totally sure that this is the beginning of a very successful road, which will get us to goals which are very important for the youngsters of our countries. Thank you, Francisco. Thank you, Mrs. Claudia Uribe, Director of the UNESCO Group for Latin America and the Caribbean Oriental Sea. And now with Huawei Technologies signs this letter of intent for these important topics. After these important messages of Katherine Chen, the Director of Oriental Sea, or ORIELC, they have set the framework to be able to give the first discussion in this virtual forum, Talentos TIC. We will deepen. We're going to deepen into the Latin American in different cases of our subcontinent. We will also have a presentation of Sylvia Moschini, which is called Agile or Swift Talent and Abilities, where she will explore the needs of the talent TICs. And we will then continue panel number 2, Digital Talents. We will deepen into our panel, training and capacitation in Latin America. We have 4 guests. We have Dr. Francisco Herrera. He is in Honduras. He's the president of the Higher Council of Central America, an organization which holds 24 universities in Dominican Republic. Francisco Herrera, he has a trajectory as a university professor in medicine, and having worked in science technologies. Welcome, Mr. Herrera. Thank you, Mr. Francisco. A greeting to the panel members. Thank you for UNESCO and Huawei for organizing such an important event. We have heard Mrs. Chen and Dr. Uribe, I think it's crucial in the training in technology in this time, but we will have to analyze, as you signal, what has happened in this time of pandemics, and mostly what was happening in pre-pandemics with regards to technology of our students and the training of our professors in technology. Precisely in 2020, we have had closings with Huawei and the topics of technology, trying to get them close to our universities in Central America, since we were analyzing the crucial need of having technology which were more solid and robust, without suspecting what we were going to have in year 2020. But the diagnostics we had at this time in the usage of tools, it was important to share the future of Latin America on how to educate, to prosper. We should question the basis of the scheme, the educational scheme of education in this new paradigm focused on the development as we were establishing. As the regional director of UNESCO for Latin America, that was crucial. Nevertheless, when we were analyzing in 2019 and made an analysis of the availability of the digital index in 141 countries, we saw that by Cisco and academics sharing with the Huawei Academy in Central America. And the reason for which this was a very important medium, and this agreement which we signed between Sisuka and Huawei, the most important components for training in digital technologies were the needs and the strengthening as the strengthening of technology. These three components, which were very important: human talent in all times. At that point, we were before a group of professors which had been trained without any technology, mostly in presential modes, and there were certain resistance to give this leap, to make this leap, which was very assertive into the technologic world. But there is also a correlation in the digital preparation of countries, as well as the other indexes of development. The more training in digital technology, a country will have a higher standard of income, IPB. We as educators, we have to acknowledge this. For this reason, it's important to highlight the affection we've had of more than 150 million youngsters in the Latin American continent, which have been excluded and affected by this condition of pandemics, which have affected the inequality issues, but mostly issues regarding connectiveness. This is now considered a human right by this condition. And for this reason, as Latin Americans, we have to demand from our countries, because of the need of having free access to all students in education, in higher education. Thank you, Mr. Francisco Herrera, President of the Council of Latin America Belize in Latin American Republics. I want to ask this question to the director of Impulsa, Ignacio Gaitan, the entrepreneurship agency on behalf of the Colombian government, which connect juvenile entrepreneurship. What is the talent, Mr. Ignacio Gaitan, where Colombia can contribute to this panel to construct this national panorama of ITC talent? What can you say in the policies of development? Impulsa, Ignacio. Thank you, dear Francisco. A greeting to our panel members and all the people which are very close to us, as well as the people of UNESCO. I want to tell you, Francisco, I celebrate the introduction that Francisco gave us. We're not talking about Colombia, we're talking about Latin America. I was meeting with a fund, and Latin America is not the smallest country, but it's bringing lots of investment. There is something in the Latin American entrepreneurship DNA, which is important and attractive. I want to take to you about 3 axes. Countries like Colombia were betting in 2018 to have the development entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a word where you talk about talent. You cannot build an entrepreneurship country without talent. This is a highlight of what we have had. More than 30 decrees from the government related to technology and capabilities. More than 28 acts sanctioned in the Congress of Republic, which have to do with digital and talent, as well as ITC. So we had to generate a legal background to generate this support. Entities like SENA, the Development for Work agency of the country, has generated more than 150,000 certifications related to abilities and ITC talent, orange economy, etc. Colombia, since the April of 2019, have centers of fourth revolution from the Economic Forum to Latin America. This has been supported in Latin America. In Medellin, Impulsa, dear Francisco, has worked in more than 70,000 certifications of abilities. This is not only ITC. We have to talk about bland or soft activities. We have to go backwards and understand how we generate, how we have generated abilities for the future. We're now doing, with your leadership, the thinking of Latin America for the future. We also have to talk about soft abilities. A third program, the leadership of 100,000 programmers in Colombia. I want to talk about the regulations of MINTIC, the National Ministry of Technologies, as well as SENA. We are also behind in the digital burst. We have more than 200,000 work offers regarding ITC technologies which haven't been covered. We have a challenge of how to attract young talent, since we have a big offer of employment which hasn't been fulfilled. We're betting on a topic. I want to mention Huawei, and it's a fantastic one. We have 150,000 for higher level in TIC talent. In this first stop, we were the first country of Latin America with a closing of certificates versus the ones who started. Younger people than 21 years, more than 25 years.
Ha fijado una meta de más de 2 millones de certificados en habilidades relacionadas con tecnologías y similares. Y nosotros, además de lo que hacemos con Huawei, estamos trabajando 50,000 certificaciones más en otras habilidades TIC. Quiero decir este panorama rápido, porque cuando un gobierno la puesta como un tema central al tema de habilidades, empiezan a pasar cosas maravillosas.
Because it starts to happen really wonderful things.
En industria,
Investment matters in the industry. To set an example, it starts to be the second most
hacia el futuro, en volverse un país
highlighted, because it starts to be more attractive, and it also starts to be with a new employment, with a new economy. This that we do with Huawei, that we do with other allies, is allowing us to, when we focus, we have a more strong policy. We have SENA, Impulsa, the Ministry of Commerce. We can have a strong bet. We also care for more than 4 million of entrepreneurs last year, and it's an important bet. To talk about this, we need to improve connectivity. So I believe Latin America has still a task to execute with connectivity, and it's not just based on getting to a lot of communities, to the rural areas and also urban, but we need to start thinking about 5G, about the future. Talent without connectivity is impossible. The pandemics show us that we need to have a better route with connectivity, better public policy. Definitely, connectivity is the biggest challenge.
Muchas gracias, Ignacio Gaitán, director de Impulsa. Dr. Francisco.
Thank you, Ignacio Gaitán, director of Impulsa from the American Central. From Central America, we have this sample that has been provided for us. Now let's talk with Ramon Iriarte. He is a specialist of UNESCO for America and the Caribbean. He has a master's degree in science, a PhD on computation from the University of Kagoshima in Japan. He is in charge of implementing and in the design of the regional program of training technical vocation. Good morning, Ramon Iriarte. Thank you for being here with us in this regional program for training for Latin America and the Caribbean. Welcome. Thank you, Francisco. Greetings to my colleagues from the panel from UNESCO.
Congratulados por la posibilidad de abrir este foro.
We feel really good being in this forum in a time where there's a lot of demand on dialogue on how to imagine the future of education, how is the role of technologies. We have followed really close what happens with ICT education. Latin America, it's not just coming here. We have had in many countries from the 90s many pioneer experiences of ICT education. We would like to mention this really brief because it has gave us really important messages for Latin America and Costa Rica. The educational informational program in Foundation Omar Daigo is a reference point from the 90s. It's a program that in which we have learned many things. We have learned it's not only important to make sure technology in schools, as Silvio mentioned, but it's also important to ensure education for all population. It's important for them to have technology at home and that digital inclusion process to benefit all population.
A partir de la experiencia de Costa Rica,
from the Costa Rica experience, the idea of having a pedagogical experience to include it, the foundation and the way to reach it, and how important it is, the teachers, their experience on the pedagogical training. It's also important, which we believe it's really relevant, is Chile's experience from the 90s.
Y
we
Chile,
can also develop the link experience, and we have mentioned about Costa Rica. It's also been important with the private sector. It's been really important. Chile work has been important to be able to manage the educational gateway and other programs related to education. In Mexico, the school network program has been important because this program included educational TV as a key associated to the educational problem to strengthen the learning. So I believe Mexico, the lessons learned have been the importance of planning a sustainable investment to include these platforms. Sometimes these initiatives have been specific governments that have bet on this, and these initiatives throughout years have lost some currency. So the sustainability on investment that requires a educational program is important. In Brazil as well, there was an important experience with ForInfo. This was a program, it's still a program that was really relevant. ForInfo also taught us the complexity of taking digital resources, computers, to countries where there's a lot of diversity, a big amount of population, where the political structure makes difficult to get these elements. So it's also important to see how to deal with this in terms of technology education in Argentina. We have important experiences with Conectar and Igualdad. This was replaced with Juana Manso plan, and the same as Costa Rica and Chile has had an important role in provisioning and also training the teachers, and also has been important in the rescue of what we have achieved, the experiences throughout time that have been accumulated, and how this has been capitalized to have a better model. And I would also like to mention Uruguay. Zanzibar is a model that every day we learn a new thing. It shows us how the one-on-one model is working. It could be also done at a national level for more than a decade. It has had important achievements in digital learning. However, something that has also we have also learned from Uruguay is we need to advance on educational research. We need more scientific findings on learning improvements, the modules that we need to use for this inclusion, and the way we could take advantage better of the capabilities that this has to improve education. We have had a lot of challenges because of the pandemics. We have seen limitations to get to some places. We have seen limitations to internet technology. In many cases, technology has become a more inclusion factor to a lot of students that haven't had the opportunity to having this technology available to access to remote education. We have evidence flaws in infrastructure, technology, capabilities, the training of teachers, the capability of parents to support this long distance process from home. We have seen really lack of resources, digital resources. We have also seen really not so much experience that has made difficulty the way educational elements have get to students. And these are the challenges right now. How to deal with all these needs and how to make this to be overcome so we could have a hybrid model and also to improve educational quality. Of course, ICT has an important role in this pandemic context that we still are, but also in post-pandemic term. We hope that the or the work between the UNESCO
Cooperación multilateral
institutions and civil institutions could really help to have the best for technology education that we have. Thank you, Ramon Iriarte, specialist of Latin American Caribbean, UNESCO in the regional office, which is located in Santiago de Chile. I would like to start this second round by talking about the challenges. We don't have a specific landmark without speaking about the ones we need to overcome. So, Dr. Iriarte, you all have mentioned the impact of the pandemic. Now I would like to start with Dr. Ignacio Gaitan from Impulsa. What challenges to overcome to get deeper into these programs, in this beautiful exercise, regional exercise that we have seen? What are we missing and what are those challenges to be able to continue moving forward? Thank you, Francisco. I was mentioning one, which for me is technical, which is related with connectivity. No doubt about the quality that we have in the delivery, it's going to improve because we have a debt with the young people to be able to have to get them what they want, because we have a delay. I believe the matter of quality and delivery are important challenges, and I'm going to mention one which has been happening because of the crisis that we are going through, and the knowledge of those young people in needs of having the skills of education. I've been in the country for the last 3 weeks, and I have seen that they're missing skills development. So not that about we have regional gaps. We are country of regions, so we cannot extrapolate what happens in the center. Also happens in the northern area and the southern area, everywhere. It's also we need to know the knowledge are not the same abilities that young men have when they are in the agricultural area, or maybe fintech, but we need to make it more specific. I was talking yesterday with an expert company yesterday, and I believe we have a big challenge to learn to know, to get to know our audience, our micro audience. I have heard fintech from the panel, and I think that would happen in Honduras or Chile. It's different. Now let's go to the regions, and I believe we need to start learning that there are population groups or micro audiences in terms of delivery, equality, and skills. So beyond technical, I would talk about the knowledge of the audiences and also public-private alliances. We are not going to make it with the governments if we are not able to get to all citizens. It's when we talk about scalable entrepreneurship, we need allies. The same happens with skills. This example, this wonderful example of today, this panel and UNESCO, with this wonderful leader, we, the government, the private allies, they do have a regulatory framework and also methodological framework. And we need to get that knowledge to those people, to those young people. That's the challenge. Yesterday, Francisco, we launched an initiative which is called Reactiva Tech. which is one of our responses to this economical crisis of the pandemic, and half of the offer, Francisco, are skills. We are acknowledging that the future to reactivate the economy is on the skills, and that's important, which I believe it's an important challenge to recognize that something that we used to do, it's not going to happen now. This has changed everything. So now we need to understand that the past is the past, and we need to start from today on to be more humble, to build better, to see what are the ones who are going to demand our talent. Thank you, Ignacio Gaitán from Bogota, Colombia, Director of Impulsa, the entrepreneurship agenda. For the ones that are just connected to our panel, we are in the virtual Latin American Forum, ICT Talents Huawei Latin America, UNESCO Educational Regional Office. We are promoting this consideration or reflection space to see the opportunities on ICT training Latin America. And I would like to go back now to Sao Pedro Sula, where you are, Doctor, to ask you the same. From higher education from Honduras and with your regional vision from the university center, which challenges do we have, and also opportunities and potential do you see from today forward in Central America? Thank you, Francisco. First, I would like to thank you to moderate this extraordinary panel. I believe it has been really interesting to listen to Ignacio Gaitán with that insight and the possibilities for the future, and highlight some of the matters that Ramon Iriarte mentioned. This information, I would like to mention two things. One, I was speaking with a young man and he told me, do you think that we are going to be remembered or named like the cell phone generation, like cell phones educated us? And he told me with a genuine worrying, and this is valid. This is something that we need to ask ourselves, and we need to fight it. But at the same time, we have the right to dream. Those challenges and those difficulties allow us to dream, and we have mentioned it already. We have been using different platforms that have been valuable to be able to overcome what we have. We had need to, and we could do it at the same time because we needed to go home, but we needed to continue. The idea was to continue, not to close, because there were ones that closed, and we needed to continue with our work. However, for us, that challenge really in Latin America, because of the difficulties that we had, that was enormous. And I believe the biggest challenge is to be able to make those dreams, those platforms that we are mentioning, to be completely different because of talent. I would like to guarantee you that right now there's a lot of people, young people, that are seeing what we are showing, what we are telling them, and will be the new way of being able to educate in the future, close future, because the talent that we have in Latin America, it's huge, and this is important to celebrate and to take ownership of it. We need to, as Latin Americans, have that creativity that we have, and no doubt about it, will provide us with a different landmark. But I mentioned the Uruguayan exercise in regards to the scientific and educational part. The pedagogic, the teachers have an important challenge because, well, we were educated in the place, So we replicate our own experiences, we duplicate them, but now teachers have the important challenge, even though they have been educated differently, now they need to train us to teach us in virtuality, because this hybrid system will stay and we need to take advantage of it. And the advantage would be that previously the developing countries with really difficult challenges needed to invest a lot of resources in buying desks and a lot of elements that were needed. Now we can divide these elements into evidently the ones to prepare our infrastructure, and now we need to strengthen our digital infrastructure. We need to prepare our teachers and we need to prepare them with the strength and capabilities on the technological infrastructure. We need to be able to interpret in an appropriate way digital content and being able to focus on teaching models based on technology. Let's have in mind that most of our teachers, well, some of our teachers were reluctant to change, but it's not just to change the board to the screen. We need to have other skills and other abilities to be able to communicate to our young people what we need to convey to them. Those are the challenges, really enormous challenges that we have. So we need to strengthen those digital competencies. We need to talk about literating, and be able to strengthen the possibilities of working in teams, but also promote communication. The fact of having these panels have gave us the possibility of having these approaches. So we are promoting education, but we need to do it in a horizontal way, in a regional way, because now we have more vision like members of region of Latin America. So what we are having now are more isolated events. We have them more close. So it's really it's really easier to facilitate and to see that we have similar problems, very similar problems. Ramon mentioned and Ignacio mentioned it, that bad quality that we have, and it's not what we pretend to, that's why we thank UNESCO and Huawei, and we want to thank this strength of communication in private companies and educators and the government to be able to strengthen and prioritize education. This is what we want. We cannot continue having rigid absence, and we need to strengthen this situation. I believe the development of ICT talent needs to be understood as a short, middle, and long-term project. We need to be clear that the strength of the ICT will come from the inner of our young men. They are the ones who are going to tell us, you who were not educated digitally are giving us this like recipe, but we are reacting with our own capabilities. So we need this. Like if you go to a tailor and he makes a dress for you. So we need to be humble and answer those needs. I believe we need to invest in incentives to promote science, technology, mathematics. We need to fight daily to get rid of that digital breach, and because that makes us difficult, we need to strengthen it to work in a collaborative way. which encompasses all Latin America and therefore improve technologically competencies of our teachers so they can continue and they will be the ones who will take the baton because they were born with their cell phone on their hands. So we need to be clear and understand that we cannot call them the cell phone generation. We need to give them other tools so they can be educated in a with more dignity and not just through WhatsApp or through a cell phone, because many teachers have had to go to several platforms which are really simple. So I believe this is a challenge as Latin American, and I believe what UNESCO has told us, it gives us hope because evidently gives us the possibility that Huawei, who is backing us up in signing this agreement, and today with this Latin American signature, I believe it's something spectacular for a more promising future for our Latin American people.
Thank you, Dr. Francisco Herrera from Honduras. We now have the connection of Micaela Sanchez, our fourth panel member. This regional landscape of the training of skills in Latin America. We have spoken from Honduras, from Colombia, from UNESCO, Chile. We now have to make a shorter, condensed question to Micaela Sanchez, which is the panorama in the training of TIC or ITC talents, and what challenges do you identify? Welcome, Micaela. Thank you, Francisco. A greeting to everyone participating here today. There are many things which have been already faced through the different panel members, which have to do with a full context in the revision of behalf of all the governments in Latin America and in our region regarding the importance of ITC technologies within the framework of education, as well as having other fundamental rules. The access to connectiveness, to technologies, to communications constitutes in Argentina a basic rule which has to do with connectiveness, as well as the relationship with TV, which were declared essential human rights in reverting the access to technologies as an essential right. This is part which we have to have in the finances of the government, the access to internet as a space to be able to make processes forward in the public policies of the Argentinian government. The platform Juan Amanso to take to 67,000 schools in Argentina to have digitalized context, complementing it with presentialness, how to identify focal points in the pandemics of Argentina. But I would also like to highlight that in complementation with the non-formal instances from the Secretary of Education, we consider that there is a double way in education. One, based on infrastructure and finances, but the other is regarding with two lines. One, non-formal education, which is not focused on classic education institutions, and on the other hand, for women and sexual incidences, and within the framework of breaking this barrier. On one hand, we have to focus on Argentina. This is the 8th country in area in the world. It's a big challenge, not only on behalf of extension, but on the particularities of each one of the regions in population and climate. It's a population with big differences in diversity. Within this context, from the Ministry Santiago Cafiero in Education, we administer a network of spaces, which we call digital spaces, where we locate in 600,000 municipalities within the 24 provinces of Argentina. These digital points are physical spaces with a computer, with consoles for video games, which allow for all the communities established in digital points to access not only a space related with technologies and internet, but also a platform in training in virtualness. This is the biggest platform of the country. Within this platform, we have been working on contests regarding digital inclusion, financial inclusion, training in skills to all the ages and groups, which has to do with complementation for scholarship, the acquirement of skills. Francisco was mentioning that we are in a context with new generation. These new generations have a closer relationship with technologies. We're complementing it with the institutional, more deepened institutional education, which is a bit slower in the development of the elements and training in skills of youngsters, as well as older ages. In complementation to this policy, which is big in territory and very rooted into the society, we have also launched a few weeks ago the Center for Creamus Tea, a part where Huawei has invested. It's a public-private relationship regarding the relationship of women, not only with studying, but on the identification of profiles towards technology in the insertion of labor market. There are studies which talk about a gender gap, not related to the access of technology, but to what we do as women with respect to technology. This step given implies us not to involve or get involved in works where we have to make decisions or we have to have relationship with technology. Huawei has given us more than 600 scholarships, not only for women in general, but for women teachers and professors, which establishes the boarding of relationships in the public scientific realm and has to do with management. We also want to share with the investment of technology to invest in a social state. We have international investors and studies. The main funds of credit provision are supporting us in Argentina to retake these public policies, not only from the private sector, but also with the government as a guarantor. From the Assad enterprise, we have to launch our satellite, which is going to operate in Mandasaa in high speed to the regions where we cannot give internet otherwise, where we have support in the federal side in the implementation of instances with hybrid clouds, which may allow for the current times, which are different by now in the reinforcement of state optic fiber with more than 30,000 kilometers and a universe of mid-sized and big-sized companies where a state has a strong role from the Secretary and the Ministry of Telecommunications in the input of non-reimbursable implementation of finances, along with the executive power in carrying out these policies. This is a first panorama. I don't want to extend much on this. which have to do with the lines related with communications and ITC development in Argentina. Thank you, Micaela Sanchez, Secretary of Public Innovation, for giving us this overview of innovation in Argentina, mostly in ITC talent for vulnerable populations, for women in this country of the South Cone. Time is shortening, unfortunately, in this panel. I want to skip the conclusions to give time to the last intervention in Santiago with Ramón Iriarte, talking about the challenges we have. We cannot skip this in the regional vision we have. So you can close, Ramón, with what challenges do you see in this overview or picture?
Sí, gracias, Francisco. Creo que hay...
Yes, thank you, Francisco. I think there are common elements that from UNESCO we see regarding the region in terms of training in ITC and the future, also making reference to what we were talking about with our panel member colleagues regarding communities and the access to technology, which are two key elements, which are prioritary to be able to talk and plan regarding the resources of technologies. If we do not have access to this, this is a challenge that transcends to education. This is a challenge where we have to intervene with other actors, as well as the ministries of technology, of innovation, of science, which have to do with this public agenda in terms of connectiveness and digital inclusion, which obviously incorporates the academic institutions and the students. One of the biggest challenges are how to face the improvement of connectiveness and digital context. According to the area, we not only talk about governments here, but also how other stakeholders can associate, how private sector can contribute in this process, and how civilian organizations involved can interact to be able to make this concrete in the digital inclusion. The other challenge we think is very important, it has to do with how we prioritize. Sometimes it has to do with priorities regarding reality. CIEMPO has done recent studies in terms of digital gaps between the different countries of Latin America, and definitely figures have to do with the inclusion of technologies which have to be focused on most vulnerable populations, as well as the development of digital skills. The other thing we also think it's a challenge, evidence from pandemics times, is how to develop these skills for the educational use of technologies, both among the educational leaders, the teachers, parents, students, the staff of educational centers. It's important to generate an ecosystem where digital abilities allow to take advantage of technology to improve education. We have to capitalize what we have to work on. This pandemic's year has to do with remote teaching, distance education, and how to project it. We think on behalf of UNESCO that we have to capitalize these projections into a model which is more appropriate for countries, which allow us to escalate hybridization, education, the ubiquitous learning, all these components which are new possibilities for the educational system. We think that another key component is what I had also mentioned before, interactive education. There's lots of interest in incorporating education, but we have very few scientific evidence of the impact of these technologies to improve the management of educational systems and to analyze the input of these technologies. We think that the role of technologies and investigation centers is key in the enrichment of the Latin American education. We have developed it in USA, in Europe, in Asia, but Latin America has a pending debt in the development of knowledge at a local level. The last component, which I would like to mention too, is what we have to do in the confirmation of networks. We have seen in the process of pandemics how we have the facing of technologies in all the countries, the communities of learning, collaboration, and taking advantage of international cooperation, the different organizations working in these topics of technology and education, so we can conceive and construct the transformation of education we need for our countries, and that the role of technology becomes appropriate and help us to improve the quality of what we're doing nowadays in our countries with regards to education. Thank you, Ramon Iriarte from Oriol C from Chile, Santiago de Chile. Unfortunately, we have finished with the time. We want to thank the 4 panel members in this virtual forum, ITC Talents. Thank you, Mr. Francisco from Innova Colombia, the person from Argentina, as well as from Oriol C, Dr. Ramon Iriarte, specialist for Latin America and the Caribbean from UNESCO in Chile. We have committed to contribute from different points of view in public innovation, from the policies, as well as from the international vision with UNESCO in trying to build this puzzle and where we're going in this roadmap. Thank you for having us. We continue with this programming in this virtual forum, and we're getting close to the reason for this. For Huawei Latin American, Huawei Technologies, along with the UNESCO Oriol C, they summoned us and decided to call upon the attention regarding this. We're talking about the signature of the letter of intent among these Huawei and Oriol C. An MOU, a letter of intent to promote the different aspects in development in the abilities for the different populations, the training in educational programs, and another series of objectives, which in the words of the 2 signers of this letter of intention, we will talk about. The people signing is Claudia Uribe, the UNESCO director, which gave the words of introduction, as well as Mark Swemen, the director of Huawei, in strengthening the technology to be able to reflect education, science, training of skills in the Latin American country, to be able to accompany and help out from the support of a technologic fortune. This letter of intent on behalf of Claudia Uribe and Mark Swemen, Global Vice President of Huawei Affairs. Go ahead, we're in.
I don't see them in the screen. Huh?
Muchas gracias, thank you very much. Aquí también tenemos
We're showing the signature on behalf of Claudia Uribe, Director of UNESCO, and Mark Swemen in the Public and Government Affairs from Huawei. Thank you, Mrs. Claudia Uribe and Mr. Swemen. Short words on behalf of each one of you. We will have words on behalf of Mark Swemen.
Okay.
Mrs. Claudia.
Thank you. Yeah. Buenos días a todos. Thank you, Director Uribe. Thank you, UNESCO, for the opportunity to join. Okay. Buenos días a todos. Thank you, Director Uribe. Thank you, UNESCO, for the opportunity to jointly construct the ICT talent in Latin America. Thank you, all the dear guests. It's finished. It's finished.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Sweman, for your words. Ahora vamos a continuar. Now we're going to continue with the doctora Claudia Uribe Salazar from UNESCO. Ahora continuaremos con las palabras de la doctora Claudia Uribe, directora de Oreal UNESCO. Muchas gracias, Mr. Sweman. Thank you, Mr. Sweman.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Y aquí aprovecho también para agradecerle al señor Mark Sweman.
Okay, thank you. And Huawei for this opportunity, for this agreement we're carrying out. With the signature today, I think we have an agenda, work agenda of intentions, which is very interesting, very relevant for the region. So with no further ado or delay, I want to thank Huawei and give all my disposition and availability on behalf of UNESCO for along with Huawei to carry out in this joint agenda with Huawei. Thank you, Mrs. Claudia Uribe. Thank you, Mr. Mark Swemen from Huawei Group. Thank you for this signing of the letter of intent.
Now
we will continue with the programming of this today programming. On behalf of UNESCO Oriel, the news in this event is the signing of the letter of intent where these two organizations look for the development of reflection spaces and strengthening the networks of collaboration and expansion, both along with governments and technologic companies like Huawei. We want to also welcome, we continue with Mrs. Sylvia Moschini. We are going to have the young talent and abilities, the keys to construct companies which are inclusive and efficient. She's a technologic entrepreneur, an international speaker, a contributor to many of the economic programs as well as in communication media at an international level. She has received lots of awards for all her life in the condition of being a woman within technology on behalf of the World Economic Forum and other organizations, as well as having awards referred to gender equity in technology and on behalf of United Nations Women in Tech and other organizations. She has also been invited to different meetings and events which talk about entrepreneurship, women in technology, and that development of entrepreneurship, the unicorns, and maybe technological companies. With no further delay, Mrs. Sylvia Moschini. Silvina, welcome to our virtual forum, Latin American Forum of Huawei and Oriolk from UNESCO. Welcome to this forum, talents. Let me give you the microphone. Swift talent possibilities.
Thank you very much, Francisco. I'm really happy to be here about a topic that we think I think they're going to bring to our region and it's going to connect us with opportunities. So thank you very much for the opportunity of being here with you. Now I'm going to start my presentation. Please tell me if you can see my presentation.
Muchísimas gracias. Como les contaba, vamos a hablar de
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to talk about crisis, but also the most important thing that crisis brings us. Once in a conversation with the chairman of Google, Eric Schmidt, I learned something that really touched my career in an important way. And it's because scarcity gives us clear of mind. Because as we know, 2020 was a year of deep crisis, and we are still going through this pandemic that we're still yet there. Because but also as Eric Schmidt says, it gives us clear of mind and make us leave our zone of comfort. So the entrepreneurs and the ones that have initiatives within companies, say how with a crisis like this we can see opportunities, because it has changed us. We cannot stop thinking about digital acceleration because of COVID we are going through. This could be a matter that changed completely the dynamic, because we are going to have to take that leap as entrepreneurs. Sometimes we see, because in Latin America we need to give technological labs. We go from being a little bit delayed to be more advanced than we traditionally were. I had the opportunity of working with a great company which was called Bank. Obviously, the ones that are elder like me could know about this company that created this really, Palm, this really innovative company that allow us to have a computer in our hand, and hopefully for everyone, overcoming that barrier that divides talents from opportunities. What has happened is that we were not working in a remote way, at least a minimum proportion of this universe pre-COVID. I was one of them, because from 2013, from the technological area, when I lived in Verona in Barcelona, I developed technology for remote equipment, because I realized that you were in a coffee shop, in a beautiful place, in some place, you could work as well. What happens with COVID is that took us from our comfort zone and made us work in a remote way to be able to continue our business, also to continue our government. Why not? Because this also impacts not only companies but also the government. They saw in internet a way to have continuity. But what happens? This touches in a really from night to day. like when a parent has siblings at the same time. So what happens is this perfect storm for digital transformation that we are living suddenly catalyzed many of things that we were seeing happening in the last 10 to 20 years. I had the opportunity of being part of the leadership team of Panabot.com that and also brick and mortar, those brick companies that in 2000 proposed to have online banking. Can you imagine the big surprise of people when we introduced the idea? They said, "Are you crazy? This is not going to happen. People are not going to put their money on an online bank account." But that storm, perfect storm that today transformed our region in one of the regions that most embraced this investment because of the crisis of COVID. We see the rise of technologies, disruptive technologies like blockchain that change the dynamic of the market, consolidating with a more global vision because technology brings the division from talent with opportunities in any aspect in a global market that through technology it's possible. It also changes a society that starts to see a bigger need of being more socially responsible, and we see the ideas that we are going to see with this coalition with this coalition between Huawei to be able to have more responsible societies and also specific initiatives that allow to have skills to close that enormous gap. And of course, also we learn to care for the environment because when we start punishing the environment, we also see the impact that our quality of life has. So it's also important the change of economy. When we talk about change of economy, we are talking about economical models. Think about share economy or on-demand economy. When you think about on-demand economy, think about Airbnb, Uber. Also think about Netflix when you access to resources, which is more important than being the owner. And that makes for today the best time to invest. This company called Room Service on 2017, which is really alike to what you see with Rappi, for example, thinking about restaurant food to consumers through a delivery system. Of course, it did not work because it was really early in the market, and then we had that economical crisis, and also because at that time we did not have the possibility of adding up on demand economy and for example with drivers from Uber that could have this delivery. So they don't have the opportunity to create an agile company and also enriching that software. Now having the infrastructure on the cloud without buying those resources. So because of the demographic change that we are going through, the ones that are less of 39 years old or the ones that think that 40 is the new 20, think about a future that is more horizontal with opportunities for everyone when we see that skills allow to connect with the opportunities without borders. This is the change that we are going through, even though millennials at heart could have a dream. And why is this important? Because we see that this that comes hand by hand with education, those skills that we need to be more competitive in a global market, because now we divide that border that divides talents from opportunities. Well, this is convenient for everyone because you will be able to have talent from Cartagena to Galapagos from Argentina, a opportunity to work to Silicon Valley or any other part in the world. It's also convenient for companies because that way they have the opportunity of growing organizations with more flexibility, access to talent in lower demand. Do you remember Netflix? We were talking about Airbnb that you don't have to buy a spring house or summer house when you could just rent it. This allows for companies to go for talent without limit, to access to those skills, and those could be found anywhere. Do you imagine the amount of opportunities does this allow? It also allows the opportunities of being more agile and have more efficiency because it's more dynamic, it's more effective, and more economic. When we talk work in a remote way, it's around 10,000 to 20,000 less in infrastructure costs, which means that this saving of not having a fixed place could be translated into improvements for the ecosystem, for collaborators, for better performance for the company, better conditions for the environment. And this kind of work is more open, inspiring, and inclusive. And the ones that know me know that my mission here in life is be able to get those opportunities to talent and that diverse talent, especially to women. Why? Maybe you know it because women are not left behind. They are acquiring university titles, and well, in a digital world, we sometimes are delayed from the market, but the idea of being able to work remote makes that gap smaller, and that allows us to have more opportunities but also have challenges. Challenges when you think about how to manage remote work has to do with the challenges that you saw a lot of time throughout these last years. I've been working for many more years with my own experience, looking for solutions to manage my own remote time, and then talk about this with other companies. We have three. First, trust. How to make sure that the ones that are working in a distributed way are really working in what they are saying, to have a vision or an eagle or general vision and how it is being developed or evolved. How to build that smart trust. That trust that is anchored in that objective review, in governance planning. How to have this trust without monitoring people and being focused on the work center, because when you are at the office, it's not because it doesn't mean that you are working. We need to define more agile processes that allow to have this rendering of accounts and being able to produce in a more efficient way. Those three things as an entrepreneur I wanted to solve. And that way I could solve this problem for many people by making easier the process of work. So if we digitalize the process of work, we could work in a collaborative way. And what are we seeing? We see that little by little, we are going to a more pseudo normality, not the one that we used to have, but we could have this remote work, and companies are saying that they could have more efficient ways and being able to continue with more flexible processes, hybrid processes that will give them maybe a little bit more of remote work. And what do we need in this case? I celebrate the work that you are doing. All society, private, public sector, we have a big responsibility in getting these abilities that close that gap, because education is a differential factor to be able to be success and make lemonade without the lemon. As the saying says, if life gives you lemon, then you know. But we need to think about the skills that we need, and the skills are in three categories. We have taken an important initiative working with multilateral, with Impulsa Colombia, with SENA, with governments in the region, and I will tell you a little bit more to push this in a more practical way, to also to promote work. The skills or needs that we need are more important than the traditional titles that in my generation we see as the key for the future. But to promote a rapid response, we need to work public and private sector, the ones that have that fire in their heart to be able to promote policies, and also companies like Huawei and the ones that have been in this process to get it to the market, to create ecosystems where everyone wins, ecosystems where the countries could have more prepared people that could export their talent, and employment unemployment to be reduced, and to generate a policy that would make more easy to solve people's problems. When we think about technical skills, we need to think about something that we will see in more detail. Programs like Seed for the Future, when you could see different Huawei initiatives, how those seeds are planted to have more women and more minorities with technological vertical skills for the companies that creating those innovations ecosystems. I'm going to tell you a little bit of this. But these companies are going to work on this technology to develop these technologies that would allow the use of technologies like IoT and AI that would help with these systems. Also, because we are in the leadership and emotional intelligence age, then we need soft skills. So we need to be able to manage people and projects, to be able to have this economy where the only constant is change. And of course, as everyone is working in a remote way, also remote work skills. We call it working academy. Cloud work, which is the new frontier of work, where we're going to have not just technical skills and soft skills, but also with management and processes, protocols, tools, skills that would allow us to work in a remote way. And also, it's important when we talk about technologies, Huawei technologies, we could talk about other players in the industry, with Facebook as an ally, where we could have, for example, certified different talent. And something really important that our region needs to do is also to embrace language training, because we need to think about languages that connect the world. When we think about emotional intelligence, it's to put in the head heart matters. How to understand in a rational way where our speaker is, the people that we are leading. We see in the pandemic crisis, the countries that are being leaded are the ones that manage this crisis better. And this is to highlight that today the leadership style, the one that is leading, is the one that is more empathetic, communicative, that women have, and also some gentlemen. But in a generic way, it's more associated with leadership management of women, communication flexibility, the adaptation to change, and also solution of problems, empathy, being in someone else's shoes, being able to work most of the time, and get this with an inclusive and a smart process. And also, relationship management through technology could help other people in the world to advance in a really super efficient way with this leadership international model, which today is going to be a big difference in our life. And to work in a remote way, it's to understand how to have a remote work, how to train our talent, the talent that we acquired, if we're going to be in a company that recruits in a remote way first, or if they have hybrid spaces, hybrid equipment. There's a lot to talk about this, but probably in your conversations or talks, you're going to see presentations in that regard. And to do it, obviously, also work processes, because we need to think about agile management and processes, and to close the unemployability and diversity gap. We talk about women. It's true. Why? Because culturally, since we are small, we condition women in the society to look pretty, to not be hurt. This is something as a society we need to change. Parents, uncles, godparents, friends, we have a big responsibility to stop this. So these little women, when once they are adults, they think about these mathematics skills, but when they are 7 years old, they start thinking that they are not as smart as the gentlemen, because we are used to not be heard and not be seen. And we need to think about changing this, because the talent does not have a gender. And I think this initiative to have equality, it's about understanding that the rights of women are exactly as the gentleman conditions, and this has a big responsibility, not only in education when they are older, but also in culture, what we define as acceptable and we could celebrate from society since they are small. We need to make normal the successful women. So the little ones and, well, gentlemen, little boys can see in little women women that have power. Let me tell you a little bit how we do it. Since I was an entrepreneur and I was really small, my dad told me that he told me that I could be whatever I want. And he told me, whatever you want to be, if you want to be a princess, you need to be a princess that builds her castle, economical independence to empower women. That's why I became in a technological and entrepreneur, because the day technology, because I saw that technology was reducing that gap. And well, you have the opportunity of accessing to remote equipment and manage it, because if you do it in a more efficient way, you will be able to reduce that barrier that leaves 51% of women when they are mothers. They are mothers, they're away from the market. Then we needed to make them, to take them, to make that they are closer to the market once again. That's why we needed to create a platform. So before remote work was very popular, it was really hard for me to explain. And then we also have leader women to raise their voice, because many times women in a really shy way, we raise our voices and we educate also the community in programs for education that complement these skills. Like, for example, in Guatemala, where I work with BID, with the IDB, with Avantel chairman, all of us together to create a program that generated a unique case study, because this was prior COVID. We had a lot of prepared women to start working online. So in virtual supermarkets, you could find them, and also the technology to access remote equipment. This has a borderless platform. And also with the current president of Ecuador, and also with an alliance with Google and Amazon, we work with young men from Ecuador that are exporting their skills to other parts of the world, because education combining technological abilities and soft skills with knowledgeable skills that you need to triumph in a global way, and access to the tools could make you being able to work from Ecuador to the world, or also to access different places. For example, us did it 30 years ago. Now we can have it really quick. This with the big volume and with internet transparency. Also working with SENA, educating women through entrepreneurship, and also connecting Rhode Island, not only creating a talent market for women to be able to find these women, but also to train them in digital skills, because we believe that we don't have to only train them, but also to create the technological interfaces that would allow to find that, to be able to meet those skills with that talent. And we also need to know how to generate that employment that is going to generate those thousands employments. How to do it? Because, well, the economic growth is in entrepreneurs, and they need budget to be able to grow. So what we did was a global private offer to be able to have fund at a global way. This is something that we are doing with Hampers, and this allows to have an evaluation from a company that has allowed us to get it to the stock market, God willing, next year. But with union with Hunters, we have the more influent people to detect innovation in Latin America, working with the enormous pleas of having Ignacio Gaitan and getting to the region to be able to have a company of $1,000 million that hopefully will be from Latin America, in an alliance with Union and Hunters, to be able to find that company of $1 million. And how am I doing it? With the former founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak. When we told them we had the opportunity of creating a project that would give the entertainment and the idea of getting money through technological platforms, and would allow masses to invest in these technologies, say yes, because I want to see next Apple. And also we added the former president of Biden Al Gore, and we also added the founder Alex Polonikin. For the ones that remember NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, a celebrity in Baxter, which is Doug Bass. All of them, along with Hunters and Union, we had an investment through those screens, and also to democratize the access of capital, because they need capital to create employment, but also need opportunities to connect to points. This is important because we are living, as I've said, the most severe crisis probably of our life. A pandemic that has, well, that has made us broken, but also gives us strength to be able to get this transformation to a bigger scale. This transformation as entrepreneurs and workers and policymakers, we need to do it together. Entrepreneurs entrepreneurship, as the entrepreneur that most admire says, Jeff Bezos, we need to invent, and therefore we need to experiment. We need to learn to relate better with the idea of understanding and to fail and continue moving forward. That's what we need to trade. So thank you very much. I'm available. Anything you need. Um, Maria Silvina Moschini. I'm the director of Go.
Francisco, ahí también tienen, si quieren.
Francisco, you have my contact in case you have any question. I would be thrilled to be able to contact you through social networks. And if there were any question, I would like to answer any question right now or later on.
Aquí aparece el punto de contacto.
Thank you, Silvina. We have the point of contact, your information. Let's give the entry to panel number 2, and everyone is probably very interested with your words. They will probably contact you in this page, in this web page, to be able to understand what she works. And Sylvia Moschini, our panel member. Thank you, Silvina, for your ideas, for your words, and sharing your ideas. This has to do with creating entrepreneurship, companies to find a way for the abilities and skill of Latin American youngsters to be able to express themselves. And technology is a great platform on behalf of the different points of view, as we have seen it in this Latin American forum. Thank you, Silvina Moschini. We continue with our schedule. I would like to welcome my colleague, Emilio Sanchez, the director of F for Mexico and Central America. He's the one in charge of moderating this panel, this talent panel. Welcome, Emilio. The floor is yours.
Por tu presentación. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Francisco, for your presentation. Warm greeting to Silvina. Thank you for your excellent presentation. Once again, you have given us a perspective of the current situation and this calling to the ever greater presence of women in the world of technology. Thank you, Huawei, for creating this event and joining this excellent group of bachelors, academics, and experts in technologies, in ITC technologies. It's an honor to be part of this panel as a moderator. We have Florinela Munoz, director of the Regional Polytechnic School of Ecuador, Carlos Marin, the director and president of Inatel from Brazil, Hector Benitez from DJ Peak from the National University of Mexico, Danilo Chambi, director of technology of ITC Technologies on behalf of the Ministry of Education of Bolivia. And we have the presence of Guzmán Acosta y Lara, the national director of Inatel in Uruguay. This debate, as Silvina has mentioned, happens in a point where we haven't finished this devastating pandemics, but we see a light at the tip of the tunnel. This is not the pre-pandemic times, but it's a good moment for analyzing the perspectives and consequences of the elements, evident elements. We have the acceleration of changes in different levels. One of them is the imperious need of digital transformation in the whole world and in the region. How have we been able to work in having some part afloat in the economics of the 80s and the 90s? If we had not had the power of technology, how would we have survived? Digitalization is key, and the access to an ultra-fast connectiveness, because it defines the differences between countries. We're facing new challenges and opportunities, and this panel, we want to respond to how to generate new Latin American talents with ITC, as well as what kind of skills the region needs, how to motivate finally our youngsters, how to generate STEM careers, as well as math skills, since we have the interest on their behalf for technologies. Digitalization nowadays is everything in agriculture, health, transportation. But the big question is how to waken up this interest. Carlos Marin was telling me last week that in Brazil, there are ICT engineers, 4,000 graduated every year, and in other places, 4 million. This is a big difference. What changes do you propose from Inatel to develop the challenges, the talents of ICT? The word is yours, Carlos.
Gracias, Emilio. Gracias por el.
Thank you, Amin. Thank you for this invitation of participating in such an interesting chat as this one. Being able to speak with directors of Latin American universities regarding on how to improve in the education, in science and technology and education. To us in Brazil, there is a big challenge. We have, at the end of every year, 8 million youngsters who enter into our higher education, but only 2 million go to university. 8 million finish high school, but only 2 million enter into university. But only 7% in this case do enter the engineerings. Some very few go into telecommunications, science of computing. To us, this is a big opportunity since it's a continental country. We have different regions. It's very diverse in Brazil, but we need professionalization in agriculture, which is a very important market for Brazil, also for telecommunications. Cities are connected from telecommunication bases. And as in all the world, we need youngsters who can work in digital transformation, developing softwares, personal systems, so we can offer to our society the best applications possible.
Alguns especialistas hablam que
in a totally digital world. We were sleeping in 2019, but we woke up in 2030 because everything happened in a very high speed. In February of last year, we had virtual tools for students, not only in our country, but in the smaller cities like Minas Gerais and in different parts of Brazil. At this point, we identify the possibility of educating through connectiveness in the distance, but our country has to improve in broadband so we can offer important and adequate solutions for education. We need, at this point, more than connectiveness, we have to offer a good program in fundamental training
en la escuela, porque para la formación de un
for
individuo
youngsters to enter into university, because for the development and training of an engineer, we do not need from 3 to 5 years of training, but also fundamental and a training in the fundaments of engineering, so we can introduce more complex topics in the training of an engineer, and consequently a creative professional which needs not only technical knowledge but knowledge in regards of emotional intelligence, soft skills, as we call it, in the training of technology. 15 years ago, the hiring of a professional was done based only upon the technical aspects, but currently we need not only technical concepts, but also the possibility of working along with other professionals from other areas, and emotional stability, a behavior which is entrepreneurship based, which allows the creation of different kinds of foci within companies. It's not only necessary to have your own company, but to be an entrepreneur within big corporations. So the challenge of Brazil, along with other countries in Latin America, is based upon good training of boys and girls for them to be able to enter into the different skills, logics, mathematics, good communication skills, not only in Portuguese, but also in English and Spanish, for us to have in the next years professionals in Latin America, not only operating in their countries, but in the other economic blocks around the world. In this aspect, we have an association with Huawei. We have in Brazil the talent factory, as we call it in Portuguese, since we train 200 youngsters who make the engineering course to be able to work in the market of telecommunications. This is a market where we have technology and infrastructure in Brazil practically comparable to the market of the United States and a fourth of the Chinese market. Consequently, the training of professionals in the communication areas, this communication between Huawei and Natel was crucial in the pandemic's time, since in the 2nd of February, we started training at a distance, and through this companionship, we now have training in a virtual connection for professional links. We now have a bigger group of youngsters to be able to follow careers which demand math, chemistry, physics, and natural sciences. This is a big challenge on behalf of all nations investing in big quantities into education, and this will allow for youngsters to be able to study technological careers which have a higher degree of complexity. Thank you, Carlos, for your intervention. We will give the floor now to Danilo Chavri, the General Director of ICT in the Ministry of Education of Bolivia. The question, Danilo, is which is the role of talents, digital talents, to be able to prepare for the future of Bolivia, and let's also analyze the impact it might have for the rest of the region. The floor is yours, Danilo. Thank you, Emilio. A greeting to the whole region and the whole planet. From Bolivia, we are carrying out work along with different entities, public entities, on behalf of the education concerning with the platform used. This is a joint work between the Ministry of Public Works and the Ministry of Public Development. Different entities working in this initiative. We would like to highlight the collaborative work along with Huawei, since it's the biggest company with ICT, where we call the sovereign cloud, where we develop the educational platform that at this point is supporting 2.7 million students and 140,000 professors and teachers live and in a synchronic way. It's important to highlight that. It's important to highlight that the work on behalf of the Ministry of Education, leading all the other ministries. We were talking about this in another conference last week. We identified 3 components. One, connectiveness, which is a work being carried out for 14 years in Bolivia. We passed from a number of connections of 816,000 to nowadays 10,407,000 connections in internet. We have invested a lot, but still we're not covering the totality in connectiveness. There is a challenge on behalf of the Ministry of Public Works. Connectiveness has to do with a satellite we have called Tupac Atari, and which will allow for the connectiveness of all of the area of Bolivia. Contents is the second point. We are working on behalf with the leadership of the Ministry of Education, along with the unit of communications. We're constantly developing educational content and a blog which is going to be destined to interactive work, since we need to speak about remote or distance education, as we're calling it. And the third component is a topic about skills, competences. This is what we have lived as a limitation. Even though we knew for a long time that the investment in technology, in a technological space, was an advantage before a market, now in the pandemic situation, we have seen that this became a need more than an advantage. And we have found, and our stakeholders in education have identified this big barrier, this hindrance at a digital level. And as we call the digital natives, they had no issue in connecting to the platform, but the teachers had difficulties, hindrances in being able to be part of this digital world. This is a topic. Connectiveness is public works, contents from the Ministry of Education, but this digital competition or competitiveness, the skills needed is difficult, is a hindrance. As a government, we have to invest in the economy of knowledge. And precisely, we're working in the National Plan of Economic Development and Social Development, where we prioritize certain topics. 3.
4,
concerning
concerniente a
or
soberanía científica y
regarding to
tecnológica.
education,
En este
the
espacio ya
scientific
incorporamos componentes de inteligencia
technology,
artificial,
as well
smart
as
cities,
the
por ejemplo, el
involvement
tema de cloud.
of
Es sumamente importante todos
artificial
estos elementos
intelligence,
para poder
clouds,
brindar
having
una
smart
plataforma de
cities.
innovación
This
mismo
allows
a
us to
nuestros
have a
mismos
platform
ciudadanos.
of innovation
Esto articulado y
given to our
transversalizado a lo que ya
citizens,
conocemos como economía digital.
transversalized
Y no
in
dejamos de
the
lado
digital
los
economy.
aportes mismos que
And
se
we
están
do not
desarrollando como
leave
economía naranja.
aside
La
the
economía naranja, una
inputs
economía de la creatividad, que es
with regards to
un punto muy
orange
favorable en
economy, a
Latinoamérica, ya que
very
podemos
favorable
rescatar y podemos
point,
aprovechar todo
since we can
impulso
rescue
cultural
all
y
this
creativo que tenemos en la
cultural
región.
thrust
Además,
we
nosotros
have
tenemos
in this
claro
region.
también como gobierno
Besides, we
que
have
invertir en
clear
conocimiento
as a
es
government that
invertir
investing
en crecimiento
in
y
knowledge
desarrollo
is
económico.
investing
Nosotros
in
tenemos clara la
development
figura
and economic
y
development. We
también
know
tal vez
this figure.
destacar y recordar también
We have it clear. We have to
un gran
remember that
teórico como es Paul
in this
Romer en su momento
theoretical
ya
plan,
destacaba el tema de la economía
Paul
del
Rome
conocimiento y
had
tal
highlighted
motivo
the
que le mereció el
economy
premio Nobel del
of
2008. Para
knowledge,
nosotros
since he
esta
was
inversión
the
es
Nobel Prize
sumamente
winner of
importante y
2008.
queremos destacar
This is important for the
que
Bolivian
estamos haciendo nuestra estamos
government.
articulando
We
todo esto
are
ya que
highlighting the
identificamos, y
articulation
es la parte ya en
of
el
all
tema de los
these
talentos
elements.
mismos, encontramos,
Since
identificamos
the same
un divorcio,
talents,
una separación entre
we
mercado
find
y
a
educación.
divorce, a
En algún
separation
momento la
between
educación
the
estaba yendo por su
market
lado
and the
y el
education.
mercado estaba
At a
exigiendo
certain
otra
point,
cosa.
the market was
Entonces,
demanding
la
something,
integración
and
de esos dos
education
mundos, que
was
es la educación
providing
y la economía,
something else.
es lo que estamos
So
intentando
in
hacer con todo
economy,
este
what we're
nuevo
trying
Plan
to do is
Nacional de
to
Desarrollo Económico y Social
integrate
para poder
all
articular e
within
integrar
this
estos
social and
frentes.
economic
Y estos
plan
apoyos,
to integrate both markets, both elements,
colaboración
both
que venimos
environments.
recibiendo de
This
Huawei, por ejemplo,
collaboration we're
identificando los
receiving on
talentos en
behalf of
tecnologías de información y
Huawei in
comunicación, son
identifying
una
the
gran
talents
ventaja,
in
ya que esta
information
situación de pandemia hemos
technology and
visto que la tecnología de
communication
información
skills.
han sido sumamente
We
útiles
have
y a
seen
futuro
they are
van a ser
very
el nuevo
useful,
nicho,
and in the
la
future
nueva
will
plataforma
be
de nuevos
the
negocios.
new
Tal vez
platform
recordar
of
que
businesses
en un
or
estudio
for
de Oxford,
businesses.
por ejemplo,
Let's
se
remember that
identificó que
in an
alrededor del
Oxford study,
47% de empleos como
we
los conocemos
found
van a
that
desaparecer en los años venideros.
percent
Y
of the
ese espacio
employment
nuevo
or
laboral que
job
se retiraría, pero también
units
se
will
crearían
disappear
nuevos
in the
espacios,
next years,
van a ser
but there will
totalmente
be
cubiertos
new spaces
con talentos
which will be
digitales,
fulfilled,
justamente, ¿no?
covered
Lo que estamos
with
hablando
digital
el
talents,
día de hoy,
precisely
todo lo
what
concerniente a
we're talking
talentos
about,
de tecnologías de
everything
información y
concerning
comunicación. Por tal
technology
motivo, en
and
Bolivia ya
communication
impulsamos un bachillerato técnico, por
technologies,
ejemplo, BTH le
or
llamamos nosotros,
ITCs.
para
The
que tenga una
BTH we
directa
call
relación con la formación
have
técnica y profesional
a total
y así una incorporación
relationship, a
inmediata en el
direct
mercado.
relationship,
De esa forma
and
comenzar a
be
vincular
incorporated
todo lo que es
into
el proceso
the
formativo y
work
curricular con
market
lo que es la demanda
with
en el
what
mercado laboral mismo
demands
y
in the
todo lo que es
market
concerniente al
are
mundo y de los negocios y la economía.
in the business and economical market really is. Thank you, Danilo, for your words. And we will give the floor now to Dr. Hector Benitez, the person in charge, the leader, the chairman for communications and computation on behalf of the University of Mexico, UNAM. Doctor, which has been the impact in pandemics regarding ICT or ITC, and what experience can you show us? Welcome, Doctor. Good morning to everyone. Thank you, first of all, to Huawei for us to be able to be within this panel and all the regional experiences we've had. Firstly, we have to start on behalf of the National University of Mexico, UNAM. We have different ones with different scales in time and space. We have learned through these months, firstly, how to overcome the impact precisely, as we were talking in March and April of last year, understanding how we were able to rethink ourselves in times of sanitary issues and how to set forth the possibilities of education in the academic challenges in these life conditions. As we had mentioned before, in different scales and levels, as a colleague from Colombia was mentioning, from different points of view, in the closeness to different educational centers in the country. In this sense, what we have developed in UNAM, in the different university, I would not call this education at a distance, since in these pedagogical programs, I would call it education within pandemics, a hybrid education with certain elements of communication and different ways of being able to, for the student to develop the activities in this context, in this hybrid at a distance. We have developed certain technologic elements to be able to connectiveness.
Y brindar una conectividad barata a diversos sectores de la población, tanto estudiantil como académica.
Both in an academic level.
Esto pues, nos implica grandes retos, pero también nos implica a entender claramente las posibilidades de desarrollar nuestras capacidades y nuestras capacidades y ahí empezaría un punto que lo hemos empezado a trabajar con varias universidades, es nuestras capacidades de colaboración, entender cómo podemos llegar a acuerdos entre diversas universidades, entre diversos espacios educativos para proveer de
educational spaces to promote connectivity elements between our students. This is something that we are constantly exploring, and we believe we could promote it, bring it in different places in Mexico. The other axis is the development, not only skills development, but also respond to a need on how to educate the environment in the environment of this pandemic, because of not having close contact. Several academic groups have developed different processes, different methods, innovation, clear processes with a clear technology in pedagogical development, and have provided a response, a kind of elements that we have started to share between ourselves to bring some kind of follow-up in the following months and in following years, because as we have mentioned, we believe this new model, work model, in education in this arena has gave us good experiences that we could rescue in different sectors after the pandemic. Clearly, we have complex situations that have stated a economical difference and have hit us in the face, and we need to develop mechanisms to generate environments where the economical difference is not what marks to be able to educate students. But at the same time, we have generated spaces with a lot of development that have allowed to different academical spaces, groups, to understand and to be able to generate a training educational space. Those experiences that we have accumulated could be categorized and be able to talk about this in a better way to our society, of course, in our academic spaces, to be able to do this a creative experience that can allow us to remember this time with a lot of changes, but good changes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Hector, for your words. Now we're going to give the floor to Dean of the National Polytechnic School of the National Polytechnic School, Florinela. The question is, how are you preparing in Ecuador students for this challenge? Try to promote digital talents and obviously to entrepreneurs. You have the word, Florinela. Thank you very much, Emilio, for this opportunity to be able to participate in this really interesting event. We have said many things, really. Many of these matters are shared between universities. My university is a technical university that trains technicians and technologists. And well, I used to think that prior to pandemics, without technologies, we could not work well. It was not normal. Because if the computer was broken, we could not work anymore. We didn't have those means. If we didn't have those means, study would be complicated. But pandemics became a situation that we could say the limit made evident how technologies are essential to continue work and education as well. Without them, we would not be able to continue. So I believe this is important and have made us think how much we need to develop technology. Our university have between our careers the systems development, software, computing, technologists. This also in telecommunication areas, we have an engineer faculty in electronic and electrical. And in these areas, we have around 15% of students in these careers with a lot of future. However, in this year, we have seen how in all careers, these tools are needed, these technological tools are needed, and every one of us did not know some of these matters, but because of the pandemic, we had to learn tool management. So I think at the end, we need to manage these technologies with a daily basis tools. What happens with the university? We base the use of some part of technology. Let's put the example of virtual classrooms. When 130 that we had to 2,500 after the pandemic. We had to obviously start seeing how to graduate students and how to allow knowledge to continue being provided. Teachers also had to develop skills, tools to give their classes. This is something that we continue doing so. And this is related to how to develop professionals that could be included in the economy. I believe these professions that are related with ICTs are important for economies like Ecuador, if we compare it with other regions or Colombia or Peru or Brazil. So I believe with these economies, countries like ours have to make a lot of efforts to be able to be included to a really competitive market. I believe within ICT, there are big opportunities to develop entrepreneurship inclusive spaces where women, disabled people can participate from spaces that are not necessarily companies or industries, but as we have seen in pandemics, being developed from home or from different spaces and not necessarily not to be, we don't have to meet. For Ecuador, this is a huge opportunity to produce opportunities. I was thinking about the vaccination and because probably has some uh, difficulties because we have not been able to have our professionals because we need to digitalize geographics, we need to digitalize data of people, we need to work in distributions of people. And those matters were managed from technological points of view, we could have better results than the ones we have had so far. So I believe we have big challenges and opportunities for the professionals of these areas and big challenges and opportunities obviously for the Ecuador and countries of Latin America that could propose entrepreneurs in these matters. And within what inclusion means, we were working prior to pandemics in inclusive matters to literate population in digital matters. We have worked with seniors that sometimes these generation gaps are given. And also with pandemics, we were able to contribute with training programs for teachers, which are needed in medium areas, and also to civil servants that wanted to learn about this to be kind of equal to the rhythm that humanity starts taking in communication ways, in work and education, and of course, women. And thank you, Silvina, for your work. I believe we have better opportunities through these technologies. We are working with an important matter, which is children, little girls with ICTs, because we believe that they need to be capable of working on these technological areas and be more involved and be able to contribute in a more active way to society. Those would be some general guidelines. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor, for your work. Now we're going to give the floor to Juana Costa Lara, who is the Director of National Communications Area in Uruguay. I would like to know from Uruguay, how are you promoting development of talents, digital talents, and how have been the results of this year with the pandemics? Well, this is an important matter. Now the continent has some deficiencies in versus the world in talent training. Unfortunately, it's the same, but we are working in an active way. We start with a good foundation. We start with Ceibal Plan, which was referenced by different panelists today. I remember Ramon Iriarte was talking about the Uruguayan experience, which has been for more than 10 years. It's a government plan that goes through a political phase and the big activity in infrastructure growth is key and essential. We have had connectivity issues. This is something that we are working on. Why is this important? Well, access to network infrastructure, the deployment of this in all the country is important. There are places where there's not connectivity, and this is what we are working actively in the development of a new asset connectivity that would allow to connect 100% of population. We have an advantage. We are a country, a CITO country, so we are working actively with, obviously, in Huawei, in different arenas. We are working with ICT Uruguayan Chamber, and we are also working with the university of some years of creation, no more than 10 years, but it's developing, and it's a technological university that undoubtedly access to lessons that we can learn in technology, and in that sense, Uruguay is working actively in this. However, we have problems as any other society we are having because we are training people in, even though we are training students, not all of them are getting to third grade, which is really important for us. So we are working actively in different training programs, which are essential in that sense. We are generating different plans like growing ICT, which is from, it's a plan from the presidency with important companies from the technology information industry like Global, Mercado Libre, like Power, which is a company that is in charge of recruiting Manpower, which is a recruiting company. And in that sense, that program generates 600 young people in the different regions to promote areas that we believe are important. And it's a model that Uruguay is providing it to be able to reduce that gap between the offer and the demand. We also have a plan that comes from SABA from 2006 to be able to stabilize young people on their first work experience and are specifically in technological areas, provides training courses with QT, IBD, which are essential elements. Also, Campus, which is an organization that works actively in the public-private with the support of the government to train people which are in related work years. Also, as a specific area in the knowledge area, we are working also from the public education with the essential element to develop in that sense and be able to have more equality and social inclusion in that sense. Those are important matters in which we believe we have learned a lot. We're still missing a lot to develop. Uruguay is working in the private and public sector. In regards to experience that we are working actively with the UTEC in hybrid areas from DINATEL, from technologies area, where we are having an agreement between ATEC, the Ministry of Technology and Industry, and developing and also a alliance with Huawei to generate hybrid classrooms, which are the new modality that is going to stay, and undoubtedly it's an essential element of teaching to generate new talents in the future. Those are elements that are within that signature in digital talent in Uruguay, which has been approved. This digital agenda has been going on from 2000, where all the stakeholders have agreed to commitments to consolidate a digital concept, and that way to generate a public policy that would include the insertion of technology that would allow to generate a digitalized, completely digitalized world. Those are challenges that we cannot provide in in just one way. We need to have alliances with the biggest company of fiber optics in Uruguay and the biggest coverage with mobile connectivity. We need to also have private and public stakeholders to participate that would provide that in that way Huawei would provide it. So we are working on being able to reduce that gap, because if we have people that are not in this digital career, in this knowledge highway, in this technological revolution where we're going to have Internet of Things, AI, 5G access, cloud work, and the different ways to contact which are going to accelerate the digitalization process. If we are not doing it together, then something will be aside. So this is something that we need to do as a country. So that's why we installed, through the initiative of the Minister of Industry, with an engineer that knows a lot about this, who is the Minister of Industry. We talked about generating an area of 5G technology for new applications, and that way to promote entrepreneurship and be able to generate, to have a technological center in that sense. Luckily, we are receiving funds, but we are missing training people to create this knowledge and talent technology, because we have the problem that we are going to train them and then they left. So we need for them to stay here so we can develop this country. In this country that seems to not having any problems in regards to technology and connectivity, as if we do have problems. We have now with the pandemics, with a traffic growth that was like stagnated, we were having problems with the connectivity. We were having people that were going up trees to be able to have a good connectivity. So that's our biggest challenge, is to integrate these assets, to be able to develop these skills within the country and be able to connect all of them. And for this, we need connectivity for all in a universal way and to have universal access. That's what we are doing right now. This is the biggest challenge that we have, to work with in this kind of sector. We have employment rate zero, in the sense of it's a well-paid employment, but we need people to work in it. We need to continue improving English language. We have it on elementary school. We also have gap differences between the public and private teaching. There are many things to do. We are working really strong in that sense. From the Natel, we are monitoring and working actively with the private and all sectors, because we believe this is a challenge where we are working a lot and we know we are valued everywhere. We know undoubtedly that this could get to all society levels. So I believe this is really important. I thank the initiative of Huawei initiatives, the signature of the understanding of agreement, because well, the social responsibility and the understanding that we need to have between the different stakeholders without where they are, it's important to have innovation in society. I believe those are concepts that in Uruguay we see that we could contribute in those efforts, and undoubtedly it's what can do. We are few, but we have a big heart and we want to grow to be able to have a better continent with more equality and to close this regional gap that we have with other countries.
Palabras que creo que
Thank you, Guzman, for your interest and your words, not only in Uruguay, but in all the rest of the countries. We might have a couple of minutes. I would like to be interested in defining in 30 seconds how you consider sharing these accumulated experiences in education on how to improve education at all levels. And finally, if you understand that pandemics has helped us be aware in transcendence of digitalization, as well as the careers and subjects regarding ITC and STEM careers. I don't know if some one of you want to take the floor, but if we have enough time, 30 seconds would be fine.
Desde Bolivia,
I think that
como
in Bolivia,
siempre hay algo bueno y algo malo de todo lo que estamos viviendo día a día.
There is good
Y el tema de
things
la
and bad
pandemia, si bien
things.
obviamente es algo
The topics regard pandemics. It's a bit sad, but it had a sanitary crisis,
aceleró lo que llamamos transformación
and we
digital.
want to accelerate
Como
the
decía,
digital transformation. As I was saying in this intervention, incorporating technology in the process of businesses, we first saw it as a technological advantage. We had improved during 10 years
¿Cómo lo estamos haciendo
in
desde Bolivia?
technology
Primero
initiatives.
lo estamos incorporando dentro del
How are we
pilar
doing it
4 de tecnología
from
de soberanía
Bolivia?
tecnológica.
We have
Estamos trabajando en un
incorporated it
marco normativo
in
actualizado en la nueva ley de
regulatory
ciencia y tecnología
framework,
y estamos
updating
impulsando un
it
fondo
in the
nacional de ciencia
law
y
or
tecnología también
act
para todo
of
esto.
science and
Además,
technology.
la intención de
Besides,
transversalizar el modelo
we have the
sociocomunitario
intention of
productivo,
transversalizing,
incorporar
making
la
it
temática de
horizontal
competencias
to
digitales
everyone in the
en
improvement
docentes,
of
en
technical
estudiantes
skills,
y en el ciudadano en
both
general,
in
porque al
teachers
final de
and
cuentas
professors
sabemos
as
que
in
esta es la
students
plataforma y el
and in
futuro
the
en el
general
cual debemos
citizen, since
abocarnos
this
todos.
is the
El
platform
tema
where we
digital
have
es,
to all work
los
on.
negocios digitales son el futuro y es algo
Digital
que ya es
businesses
disruptivo.
are the future, and this is no doubts.
Una última intervención porque me dicen que no tenemos mucho más.
Thank you, Danilo. We only have a point for a last intervention. I don't know if Hector or Florinella want to participate, or you want to intervene, the last participation, or anybody, Mr. Carlos. I'm going to do it very shortly. I think we have certain challenges, quality, equity, and access with a flexible vision of education that should include presence more than virtual, and a very important topic, soft abilities or skills. We have to include ethics and a culture with no corruption. Thank you, Emilio.
Quisiera, aunado a lo que acaba de decir
Hector, besides what Florinella has said, not to repeat it, I would like to mention the topic that some panel member mentioned, the scientific analysis of what's happening around us, meaning taking or making decisions based on data, on the understanding of our population, not only good guides, but a lot of information. What we can say is this pandemic has given us a lot of information through lots of pain, but it gave us a lot of information. Thank you, Emilio. Thank you, Hector. Thank you, all the panel members. Unfortunately, we do not have any more time, but it's the time for Francisco Miranda to make a summary of the conclusions.
Gracias, Emilio. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Emilio. Thank you for the second panel, where joined to the experiences of Honduras, Chile, UNESCO, we added Mexico, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Uruguay. To be able to have all these experiences jointly on behalf of all the countries in this virtual forum, ITC talents, improving the skills of Latin America. We might only have 5 or 10 minutes to be able to speak with Cesar Funes, the president of Latin American relationships. I would like to make some questions just for a close-up, because all the presentation of these 10 countries which have been with us have generated the whole scenery, they have identified the challenges, they have shared all their experiences as countries and the visions we have towards the future. Let me welcome Cesar Funes again. Thank you, Francisco. Thank you for your introduction. Cesar Funes has a trajectory of more than 30 years in technological enterprises and in the whole discussion from North America to South America, the tip of South America. As a conclusion, Cesar, there have been different postures, different stances, experiences on behalf of interlateral organizations like UNESCO, technical universities, technological institutes on behalf of certain countries, different visions besides the visions given by Katherine Chen, the vision of Huawei, and the signature of a letter of intent. What would you highlight? Thank you, Francisco. Yes. As you all know, Huawei has contributed continuously with technological development, but also sharing corporate responsibility based on projects which have been successful everywhere in the world, and we have shared some of them here. We will continue with our efforts into closing up the gap in the region, as well as to assure the integration of Latin America and the Caribbean to the digital economy, working mostly on the development of talents regarding ITC. In Huawei, we're committed with the open collaboration and joint success. We're very privileged to work along with important organizations like UNESCO. It's important, it's valuable that we can share this with ORLC in the future of the region. Thank you, Cesar.
Cerrando ya para darle conclusión e invitando a nuestros
Just to give the conclusions and inviting our journalist colleagues here who probably have found a Zoom invitation where we're going to develop a media session, which is not within here. We're finishing this up in this event. Let's make this last question to Cesar, and let's meet in the question and answer session later on. Which is the overview, the picture today, Cesar? But what is the picture on behalf of Huawei's vision? And what can we see for the future for the Latin American region? Thank you, Francisco. As we were able to hear, evidently on behalf of our Executive Director, Katherine Chen, we have impacted more than 50,000 students in the region in different countries, and we have collaborated with more than 100 universities along the whole region. Our main programs are Seeds for the Future, the first one, which has been operating since 2018. The other one, ICT Academy, operating since 2013. And the contest, the World Contest of ICT. The team of Peru has been the winner twice for the category of cloud. In Colombia, I would like to highlight the program Education for All. We are pushing forward with Impulsa. We started with 3,000 awards, and in the next years, we will have an impact of 50,000 awards. Scholarships. In Argentina, we also have a program called ICT in trying to work with women in closing the gender gap. In Brazil, we have the education of artificial intelligence and 5G. We want to widen into 40,000 people in the next 4 years, as well as it is important to highlight an alliance to be able to get to 50,000 people too in Mexico. In all countries, we have mentioned the project of Chile. We are pushing forward the integration in Latin America and digital economy. We also mentioned Brazil, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Panama. We have an important list where the intention is to be able to bring together and closely the development of talent, the knowledge of ITC, which is the engine of closing the gap in the digital technology. We are working with different organizations in the development. We have joint efforts with Orielk in improving the fingerprint for teachers mostly, who will help us expand in an exponential way towards students and citizens along with Orielk. Thank you, Cesar Funes. I am Francisco Miranda, director of the magazine and newspaper portfolio. Unfortunately, we have gotten to the end of ITC Talents, Improving the Future of Latin America. All these events where we carried out a trajectory from Mexico to Latin America. We analyze how all the stakeholders in the training of ITC shared their experiences. They told us about everything they have experienced. We thank you in the name of Portfolio Huawei and L'Oreal, UNESCO. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for bringing along this message to all the society. Thank you for the support of technological companies and how you can input for technology to be the main actor and character in all our countries. May you have a great day. We invite the journalists to the special link. The motivation of the day is the UNESCO portfolio, the training in digital technology for women, for youngsters and vulnerable populations. Workshops that can carry awareness in these great organizations for one of the biggest challenges in Latin America, the training of youngsters in their population. May God bless you all. Have a nice day.